Lori Vallow Daybell, in the jury trial for Charles Vallow, told the jury that the case and murder was about a family tragedy. In her next trial, she told the jury, again in the shooting of Brandon Boudreaux, that this was a tragedy. And while she's been in custody, she has agreed to speak to the media 4 times. And she has again spouted off that this was a family tragedy. A tragedy is a disastrous event, a calamity, a misfortune. Synonyms for tragedy are accident, catastrophe, disaster, misfortune, or mishap. A family tragedy does not involve premeditation. A family tragedy does not involve the intentional killing of a person. A family tragedy does not involve working with an accomplice to commit first-degree premeditated murder. And a family tragedy does not involve conspiring with others to kill. Lori Vallow Daybell has evoked the words family tragedy, but her actions show her to be a cold-blooded murderer. Even more disturbing than Lori Vallow Daybell's attempts to fashion the murder of her husband, Charles Vallow, and the shooting of her nephew-in-law, Brandon Boudreaux, as a tragedy, is the way she has twisted religion and fashioned it as a justification for her actions. The reality is this defendant is the same as every other murder defendant. The motives we usually see in murder cases, money, sex, are exactly what motivated this defendant for the murder of Charles and the attempted murder of Brandon. Although this defendant denies it, her text messages and her own actions show that these were her motives. Lori Vallow Daybell's motive for helping to try to kill Brandon Boudreaux was to help Melanie, the woman who called Lori Vallow Mom and called Chad Daybell Dad or Daddy. Just like with Charles, Lori and Chad used their twisted religion to claim that Brandon was dark, possessed, and therefore his death would be justified. Brandon's death would have given Melanie money, the same motive as with Charles. The only difference was this money was for Lori's, quote, daughter, Melanie. The court has presided over these 2 trials and has heard all of the evidence. The court has accepted the verdicts from both juries. And this court accepted this defendant's admission of statutory aggravating factors in both cases: the presence of an accomplice, the use of a deadly weapon, and for Charles's trial, the infliction of emotional harm on Charles's family. The court is legally permitted to find any other aggravating factors and to give each of them the appropriate weight or value. Emotional harm is a very strong aggravating factor that exists for both Charles's family and Brandon and his family. But how do you give the appropriate weight or value to the aggravating factor of emotional harm? The defendant admitted it exists, but that doesn't provide this court with the facts to really weigh the harm that this defendant sentenced these families to. So I want to start first with Charles's family and their emotional harm. Charles Vallow has 5 siblings. He has nieces and nephews. He has 2 sons from his first marriage, Cole and Zach. He had JJ and Tylee and Colby, and he had so many friends. You've heard from Charles's sisters and brothers. Charles regularly visited them. He talked with them regularly, and each sibling has suffered extreme harm as a result of this defendant. We didn't hear from Bobby today, one of Charles's brothers. When I first spoke with Bobby, he told me a story of March of 2019. Charles was visiting. Bobby talked to Charles, and Charles told him that Lori was trying to kill him and that she was going to kill him for his insurance money. Bobby told me how Charles was crying as he spoke and how difficult it was for him to talk to him about this. Bobby told me how much he misses Charles and that it felt like someone had cut off an arm or a leg. That's the pain that he suffers to this day. When I spoke with Charles's brother, Jerry, I learned how Jerry looked up to his brother and literally followed him around as a child. How they shared a love of baseball, and Charles, who was a semi-pro, tried to help his brother learn to be a better player. This is a loss that Jerry still feels every day. When I spoke with Charles's sister, Susan, she told me a story about how close her son was to his Uncle Charles, and the reaction that he had when she had to tell him that his Uncle Charles had been killed, how it devastated him. When I first met Kay and her husband, Larry, I could see the exhaustion in their eyes after going through the trials in Idaho. Kay and Charles were exceptionally close, and it was clear to me that Kay would do whatever was needed to ensure that her brother got justice. And she has been here many, many days. But one of the most disturbing parts of this case that gives so much weight to the aggravating factor of emotional harm and shows how callous, how self-centered, how uncaring, and how narcissistic this defendant is the text messages that she sent to Charles Vallow's sons, Zach and Cole, on July 12th, the day after Charles died. She let them know via a text message that their dad was dead. She wrote, quote, "Hi, boys. I have very sad news. Your dad passed away yesterday. I'm working on making arrangements, and I'll keep you informed with what's going on. I'm still not sure how to handle things. Just want you to know that I love you, and so did your dad." One of Charles's sons texted back, "Lori, what happened?" Lori Vallow knew that Alex Cox had shot and killed Charles, but instead of being honest or caring about his sons, she lied and told them, "We are still waiting on the ME report. I'll let you know more when I can." Charles's sons texted again and again, and at one point, one of them indicated, "You can't just tell us Dad died and disappear." On July 15th, one of Charles's sons texted Lori and said, quote, "Okay, Lori, it's been 3 days. You let us know our father passed away over a text message. 3 days and we haven't heard from anyone. The only information we have is the one text from you saying he passed away. You disappeared after that. We need any information you have. What happened? When did it happen? How did it happen? Where is he now? Are there any funeral plans? We talked to him all the time, and now he's gone. He was our dad, and we loved him very much. We deserve answers." Lori Vallow Daybell never answered their questions about what happened to their dad. Instead, she lied to them and said she was planning to cremate Charles and take all of them to Hawaii to spread his ashes. Instead, this defendant FedExed Charles's ashes to Louisiana and took Chad Daybell to Hawaii. This court has heard from just a handful of the people who loved and cherished Charles. There are more in the courtroom and many more who could not be here. Each one of them will never be complete again. This defendant damaged every one of Charles's family members and friends when she helped orchestrate his murder. This court is in possession of lifetime injunctions for Susan Vallow, Jerry Vallow, and Kay Woodcock. The state asks that you sign those and serve them on the defendant. The state also provided to the defendant hard copies of the restitution requested by Kay Woodcock for travel, food, and housing, all the things she had to do to be here in this court. The total amount of restitution for Kay is $8,949.52. The state asks that you order that restitution. The court also heard from Brandon Boudreau and his family. Brandon survived his attack, but he suffered for months, fearing he would be killed. Brandon left Arizona to hide from Lori Vallow, Alex Cox, and Melanie Boudreau-Pulowski. Brandon is the person who tied this case to Charles's murder, and he alerted the police when he saw that Chad Daybell's wife had died, and he knew all of these things were connected. Imagine living in absolute fear that you could be shot and killed at any given time by people who were your family. Knowing a bullet had hit your car just a couple inches above your head. This is the emotional harm that this defendant thrust upon Brandon and his family. The court is in possession of lifetime injunctions for Brandon Boudreau, and the state asks that you sign it and have it served upon the defendant. Brandon asks to keep restitution open. He will be requesting that later. As I said earlier, the court has to weigh all of the aggravating factors that have been stipulated to by this defendant, all of the aggravating factors laid out in the state's sentencing memorandum, and the aggravating factors expressed to this court by the next of kin and victims against any alleged mitigating factors this defendant might present. There is no doubt that the aggravating factors substantially outweigh any alleged mitigation. The volume and weight of this defendant's actions and the aggravating factors support running each of these defendants' convictions consecutively to the others. Because of all of the aggravation, this defendant's actions, the state requests that this court run Brandon Boudreau's case consecutively to Charles Vallow's case, and that these two conspiracy to commit first-degree murder convictions from Arizona be run consecutively to the sentences in the defendant's Idaho murder case, CR 22-21-1624. Thank you.